good day. We are the group 4 and we are going to discuss about the broken line graph. Hope you guys gain something on our video presentation. So allow me to introduce myself. I am Hannah Karaga, assigned in topic introduction, steps and process on how to solve, create, calculate, and illustrate, and one sample problem with solution, answer, and explanation. Furthermore, let me introduce my group members. First will be Ms. Karil Jane Fernandez. She will be discussing the objective of the topic and also the other one sample problem. Followed by history of broken line graph, Ms. Eva May Kagang will take charge of that. Next will be Mr. John Lloyd Samuel for the terms with definition, use in our discussion, and for application, use and importance of the topic. And lastly, Ms. Antoinette Claire Andales for the generalization or conclusion. Introduction. So what is broken line graph? It is a diagram in which a line formed by line segments connects the points that represent the data. Broken line graph is a diagram that consists of a horizontal axis divided into units of time and vertical axis that displays the value of the qualitative characteristics studied and in which the data recorded are represented by points that are connected to one another by segments to form a broken line that illustrates the evolution of phenomenon after consideration. Line graph is also called as a line graph. Click to a root graph in the sense that segments connects vertices of the roots. The broken line graph is particularly useful for representing the distribution of a quantitative statistical characteristic we often use to illustrate a phenomenon to evaluate over time. So, let's go and listen more about the broken line graph.
Hi guys, this is Carl Jane Fernandez. Today, we're going to talk all about the objectives of broken line graph. So, first, according to the Cambridge Dictionary, a broken line graph is a graph that shows information as dots that are connected by straight lines. So, these graphs do not necessarily form an overall straight line. Each data point is often a vertex where the line makes a change in direction. Second, broken line graphs are one way to show information. So, users of these graphs often choose this method of representing changes in data over time, such as changes in stock market prices throughout the day or changes in daily temperatures. The lines allow users to interpolate unknown data values between two dots representing known values. So the last one is, in such graphs, convention dictates one independent variable horizontally on the x-axis and the dependent variable vertically on the y-axis. So broken line graphs are also useful in presenting data collected over time when a third variable exists. So for example, a broken line graph showing monthly temperature averages for two different locations. So the preparer uses different colors for the lines to represent each city, allowing graph users to easily compare trends that exist.
So, the history of a broken line graph. Who introduced line graph? William Playfair founds statistical graphics and invents the line chart and a bar chart. Cliff Ristrey, Ball and Time series, area chart from his commercial and a political atlas. Why is it broken line called? A broken line called a polygonal chain is a finite sequence of aligned segments joined consecutively and point to endpoint. Why is a graph broken? A variation of a line graph is a broken line graph. This type of a line graph is used when it's necessary to show change over time. A line is used to join the values, but the line has no defined slope. However, data points are meaningful and they all represent part of an important part of a graph. And that's all. Thank you.
A broken line graph has various labels that plays a vital role in the interpretation and representation of the data in a graph.
The x-axis
These labels
represents the unit
include
of
the
time,
horizontal axis,
which displays the unit of time,
the vertical axis,
which displays the value of the specific data.
and lastly, the scale break.
It denotes the break in the continuity of data points.
Steps on how to make a broken line graph. First, identify the independent and dependent variables. Second, determine the range of the data that needs to plotted for each axis. Third, choose the range for the axis. Fourth, number and label each axis. Fifth, plot the data points. 6. Draw the best fit line for the data. And lastly, number 7, give the graph a title. For you all to understand more, here are the sample problem of the broken line graph.
On this slide here is a tally table that I've pulled from one of my worksheets, and we're going to actually create a broken line graph for this frequency tally table. I thought that it would be a lot more fun because it's got some bigger and more awkward numbers up here, and of course it has something different as opposed to the colors. Now, there's no particular order in which you should create your broken line graph, but it should include all of the things that we're going to do. So I'm going to decide that the first thing that I would like to do is I would like to label the axis, the horizontal axis. And we have 4 types of music: rock, jazz, country and western, and I hope that you don't mind, I'm just going to put CW, and folk. Now we have some weird numbers here, so what is our scale going to be? Now I see some small numbers, 7, 11, 17. We're not going to worry about this number. We don't actually need it for our graph. But what can we do with these numbers? So there's several different answers that are possible. Because I see that my smallest number is 7 and my biggest number is 27, I actually might be inclined to go up by 6. So that's what I'm going to decide to do. And kind of like what I did for the bar graph, I'm actually going to skip and I'm going to start 6 here, and then I'm going to go up by 2. So 6, 12, 18, 24, and because my biggest number is 27, I'm going to finish here at 30. So that's my scale. My scale is going up by 6. I'm also going to title this the frequency. It's not fancy, but we're going to put frequency. We'll do the title of the graph at the end, just because. So let me change colors, because now we're going to plot our points. So for rock, 27 people said rock. Now here's where it gets tricky. You're probably like, okay, but where am I going to put 27? Use your best judgment. 27 is definitely going to be somewhere between these numbers. It might even be halfway between those numbers, because we have 24, like 25, 26, 27, 28, 29. So we're going to put 27 to be somewhere here. And we're just going to place it on top of the rock label, of course. Then we have jazz. Jazz has 7. And so once again, here's 6. So it's got to be just right above 6. So we're going to put it somewhere here. That actually might be a little bit too high, but for now it's fine. Country and western has 17. Here's 18. So I'm going to... that's why it's a lot nicer, and you should have one. It's a lot nicer to have a ruler, because then you can approximate, okay, that's where it is. So I'm just gonna put a dot right here. And I'm gonna erase this line because I don't really need it. And the last one is folk. Folk has 11. So once again, it's hard for me to do it here, so I'm actually gonna draw a line so that I know that I'm on the right spot, and I know that I'm gonna put a little dot right here. So my dots are pretty scattered in this case, right? So what do we do when we're talking about a broken line graph? So I'm just going to connect the dots like so. And this, everybody, is what is called a broken line graph. Of course, we are missing something very important, which is our title. and we're just going to write it up here because it's actually here. Favorite music. Now, this is what it looks like. Not too difficult. I do want to remind you of a few things though. One, graph paper.
So, examples of broken line graph. A broken line graph is a diagram that has a horizontal axis divided into units of time and a vertical axis that displays the values of the qualitative characteristics study, and in which the data recorded are represented by points that are then connected to one another by segments to form a broken line that illustrates the evolution of the phenomenon under consideration. So allow me to show you a video that can help you to learn how to do the broken line graph. So these are the examples of broken line graph. Watch carefully and learn broken line graph.
In this video, we will look at a couple of examples to practice working with broken line graphs. In particular, we'll practice analyzing broken line graphs and answering questions about them. Example A. Answer the questions below for the following broken line graph, which shows the distance over time of a bus from the bus depot. So the first thing that we see is this graph, and we can look at it. We see the time in hours. So it starts out at time 0. This looks like to be at 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, and it goes up by 2's here. So at time 0, it's 2 miles from the bus depot, and then it gets farther away. It stops for an hour at 4 miles away, then it drives again, gets farther away, stops, gets farther away, stops, and then turns around and starts getting closer and closer again, but then it stops for a little bit and then gets closer again. So we're going to use this graph to answer some questions. A, what was the fastest speed of the trip? Okay, so anytime you have a distance time graph, speed will be the slope of the line at between any 2 points. So if we want the fastest speed, we want to think about which slope is the steepest. And it looks to me that the steepest slope was right here on this line. It goes from 20 up at the top, 20 miles away, down to 4 miles away in just 1 hour, from 5.5 hours to 6.5 hours. So the slope is -16, which means the speed is 16 miles per hour. So the fastest speed is 16 miles per hour. If you weren't sure, you could check the slopes of the other lines, but I can tell by looking at it that one is the steepest. Part D, how many times did the bus stop on its trip? Do not count the beginning and end. Okay, so anytime the bus stops, it will be where we have a horizontal line, because the distance away from the bus depot isn't changing as time is going on. So I can see that happens right here. From 1 hour to 2 hours, it's stuck at being 4 miles away. Again, right here it stops, right here it stops, and right here it stops. So it stops 4 times throughout the trip for, about an hour or half an hour each time. So the answer is 4 times. Now let's look at the next question. What was the initial distance of the bus from the bus depot? So that was how far away did it start out at the beginning of this graph. So that's right here. At time 0, it was 2 miles away. So the initial distance was 2 miles. And we have one more question. What was the total distance traveled by the bus? All right. So this question can seem harder than it is. Think about, we started being 2 miles away. We were driving and stopping and driving and stopping and driving and stopping until we get to 20 miles away. So how far have we traveled so far? We've gone from 2 to 20. So that means so far we went 18 miles in that first part of the trip. So from here to here, we've traveled 18 miles. Now, we turn around to go home. We go from being 20 miles away to down here, 0 miles away. So we're traveling 20 miles over the course of that part of the trip. So total, we've traveled 18 plus 20 miles, or 38 miles. So this answer is 38 miles. So hopefully this example helped you to see how to analyze broken line graphs, specifically distance time graphs, as far as figuring out distance traveled and speed and what it looks like when you've stopped.
Everything my group mates tackled is all about broken line graphs. In conclusion, broken line graph is basically one way to show relationship between variables, and the diagram that has a label of horizontal axis, which divided into units of time, and the vertical axis that displays the values of qualitative characteristics studied, and scale break is a strip done in the chart area to denote the break in the continuity of data points. Markers or points are used to represent amounts. Dots, stars, and other symbols can be used as markers. The broken line graphs is very effective for displaying the distribution of quantitative statistical characteristics. It is frequently used to depict a phenomenon that evolves through time. That's all.
Each and every graph has its own significance and importance. One of these graphs is the broken line graph. This graph shows data over time. Since a broken line graph shows the different data and changes over a specific period of time, it is usually used in an organization where it interprets data that is useful in predicting the future trend and would be beneficial to the organization. A broken line graph can also be used in interpreting data with regards to an individual's daily activities. One notable example of this is tracking exercise activities over time. By doing this, we would be able to balance the amount of exercise that an individual will perform over a specific period of time.